You know, it's the one thing we all have in common, but it's the one thing we spend most of our lives trying not to think about, that our time here is limited. But how we choose to deal with that fact? Well, it says pretty much everything about how we choose to live. So, let's get into it.
And this, right here, is the central problem, isn't it? According to thinkers like Ernest Becker, our entire lives are pretty much shaped by this deep, often totally unconscious anxiety about our own mortality. It's like we're fundamentally driven to escape this fear, but just living, every birthday, every change we see, keeps reminding us it's there.
So, how in the world do we cope with that? Well, the most common way is we try to build something that we hope will outlast us. We create what's called an immortality project.
What does that mean exactly? It's our attempt to be heroic, to create something so big, so important, that it kind of denies our own physical end. It's a symbolic win over death. We tell ourselves, hey, if my legacy lives on, then in some way, I do too.
Okay, so let's look at this in action, with two guys who took it to the extreme. First, you've got Gerald Fenn, the CEO. His immortality project was his company, his own body, just a tool to build that legacy. Then you've got James Aldrich, the visionary. His project was his own body, a fortress built with science and optimization, all designed to literally outrun death itself.
But here's the thing about fortresses, and you knew this was coming. No matter how grand the project, no matter how strong we build those walls, eventually, they crack.
Because, in the end, the project is never really enough. A huge company, a powerful community, even a perfectly optimized body. None of it can stop the simple, persistent march of biology. And then it happens. The denial we've so carefully built up just gets shattered. Our own body, the very thing we were trying to transcend, sends a signal you just can't ignore. It might be an illness, a heart attack, a diagnosis. And in that moment, your whole life's work, that great fortress you built to keep the fear out, it fails. It can't protect you when you need it the most.
For Gerald Fenn, the signals came as a heart event and then a stroke, but his project, the company, was just too important. He pushed right past the warnings. For James Aldrich, it was a routine scan that found cancer, breaching his fortress of science. For both of them, the result was exactly the same. When the end really came, their life's work left them with absolutely nothing but unprepared, raw terror.
So that's a pretty bleak picture. And it leads to a really fascinating question. If running away from the end leads to terror, what happens if we actually turn and face it? What if there's another way? This quote from an oncologist, wow, it just captures the whole problem perfectly. This is the expert, right? The guy who guided thousands of people through this process. But when it was his turn, he admitted that all his expertise felt like a theory, like a rehearsal. It had nothing to do with the real, actual experience.
And as he got closer to the end, his whole perspective just flipped. He realized his entire life had been spent on the outside, analyzing. Dying forced him inside his own life, and he found that it was life itself, the messy, emotional, unpredictable part that he'd always been avoiding. In his final weeks, he found something he said wasn't strength, but it felt real, and most importantly, it felt like enough.
And he wasn't alone. This brings us to two other people who chose not to run, but to actually study the process of dying as it was happening to them. They were trying to find, as they called it, a grammar for the experience.
First, we have Margaret, a philosopher. Her approach was really methodical. She refused what she called the fog, the heavy medication, the easy platitudes, because she wanted to see her own death clearly. She paid radical attention, literally taking notes on everything she was feeling, the pain, the fear, like she was a scientist documenting a strange new world. She just wanted to know what this thing really was.
Then there was Thomas, a literature professor. By just observing his own decline, he came to these incredibly profound conclusions. He saw that death wasn't the enemy of life, but just its final chapter. He realized the body's breakdown isn't a failure, it's a natural process. And he saw that love is a fact, something that exists completely separate from our survival. And his conclusion, just like the oncologists, was so simple but so powerful. This is enough.
So what we're left with are these two totally different paths. And the amazing lesson here isn't really about how to die. It's a question for all of us, for the living, right here, right now.
You've got the flight from death on one side. The goal is a kind of fake immortality, and the method is all about building, managing, and denying. The outcome? Terror and regret. But on the other side, you have the encounter with death, The goal there is totally different. It's just to be present. The method is to pay attention, to connect. And the outcome is authenticity, and there's that phrase again, finding enough. It turns out, facing our end is what actually teaches us how to truly live.
Which leaves us all with one final thought to chew on. We all have an immortality project, whether we call it that or not. It's our career, our family, our passion. So the question isn't if you have one. The question is, what's it for? Is it a fortress you're building to hide from life, or is it the very thing that's helping you truly live it?